room here today is full of decision makers and policy makers. And as a part of Hungarian society, but also as a part of an international society, I wanted to talk to you about the cloud. A lot of you have probably already heard about it or maybe even know a lot about it, and the different ways we are currently using digitalization. Colleagues before us have talked about it, and also the risks. And I'll take some examples to the floor where hopefully you will leave this room with a lot of question marks, because there are still a lot of questions to be answered. Questions around security and questions around our personal behavior in this age of the digitalization. Who knows all versions of the cloud in this room? Nobody's going to stick out their hand. Let's say I'm going to start very quickly to walk you through what we understand the cloud to be, so that we're all on the same page, and then we can talk about the individual cases afterwards. There's the public cloud, and if you haven't heard of it, you're probably already using it. You're all having smartphones. These smartphones are usually supported by applications that are hosted in the public cloud. We provide, as T-Systems International, and also as a brother in the group of Magyar Telekom, public cloud services to our customers. And if you have Dropbox or if you use Amazon, then you're already in the cloud. More and more companies, I'll show you in a few slides from now, are using the public cloud as a solution for their infrastructure. And therefore, the question is, as a CIO, are you ready to make that decision? And do you understand what it means when you move into the public cloud? And does it maybe feel safer to keep everything in your own data centers, or is it safer to do an on-prem cloud? Sorry. Private cloud. This sounds very safe, right? It sounds like it's in your own house, it's in your own data centers. Private cloud means there's a dedicated amount of space in an infrastructure that is only for you. You're not sharing it with anyone else, and most likely you will have an on-premise, or in your own data centers, an on-premise infrastructure that supports your company. What is good about that? It's very safe because it's inside your own network. What is bad about that? It's extremely expensive because you're not sharing with anyone else, which means that all the costs that you're making and all the costs that you're making from running it are for you. Therefore, a lot of companies choose hybrid cloud, which means that some of the applications are still running privately, a lot of the applications are starting to move into the cloud, and very often, as you'll see in a few minutes, people don't even build their own applications anymore because we're all part of the world, and there are a lot of companies out there that are a lot faster in building better applications than we are. So very often we buy software as a service, we buy and platform as a service, and therefore we move our entire responsibility for running our infrastructure into the hands of cloud providers. Just to make things a little bit more interesting, there are many layers and decisions to be made, and I'm doing this, I'm showing you these complicated slides, not to walk you through the entire infrastructural architectural thinking of cloud, but to show you that when you decide to move something into the cloud, when you decide to put your personal information in an application which is hosted in the cloud, it helps to think about what you're actually doing. It helps to think about whether you have actually consciously thought about the security of your information, the security of your children's information, the security of your mother's information, for that matter, and the security of, as you'll see in a moment, my cat's information. Why do you need to make conscious decisions about these things? Because it's important to know what the future will bring from a cost perspective. How flexible do you want to be? Do you want to sink your investment into a one-off big private cloud, which you will have to write off for the next 5 to 10 years? Or are you going to move slowly into an infrastructure that you know is going to be up to date and secured by someone else, and learn how to use it in such a way that you as a company no longer consider IT costs as something that you personally have to manage and that is not basically controllable on a moment where the situation in the market changes, the situation in your company changes, economic figures might be very good or very bad, and you are not able to react as fast as anymore if you invest everything into your own private infrastructure as that you would be if you are moving more things into a public infrastructure. How do you move? How do you get there? Do you provide a migration service as companies do? And I know that there are a lot of software companies here today. I've seen our friends from Microsoft here as well. They provide, as does T-Systems International, help to migrate you from one place to another, to inform you about the consequences and to make you feel decisive and secure when you're moving from a private instance to a public one. And how can you make sure that the decisions that you're making are future-proof? We have simple workflows that look really simple to make decisions like that. And when you do these things, when you're asking yourself where you personally are going to move into the private cloud, or when you as a company or as a government decide to move into the cloud, I need you to think about these things very consciously. And I know that your IT directors will advise you in one way, and consultants will advise you in another, and of course the providers of the solution will advise you in another, but it helps to look at things very neutrally in common sense. There's no one single truth about these things. The only truth that really matters is, does it fit to your strategy, and do you feel safe in 5 years from now with the investments that you're making? Today, 36%, this is European data, so it's not Hungary, it's, let's say, the whole of Europe. 36% of the companies still do everything on-premise, which means they have no applications in the cloud at all. 30% already use public cloud for their company infrastructure, and 18% have decided to build up private cloud. And private cloud, as I said, is really expensive, so typically only used by very large companies and not by medium and small enterprise because they cannot afford it. And hybrid, 16%. And I'll get to the point why we think that it's so small. In the future, as you can imagine, predictable, more and more companies will decide to go into the public cloud and use public cloud infrastructure as their guaranteed success for the future. Hybrid will only grow a little bit. Why do you think hybrid only grows a little bit? Because it is not as flexible as it makes you feel. It is not as safe as it makes you feel. Because you put half of your infrastructure in the public cloud, and you're dependent on securing your connectivity between the public cloud and your in-house infrastructure. And with that, you've actually made a decision where the connectivity and the people monitoring the connectivity become the weakest link of the security that you have around the cloud. The cloud is here, guys. So we're all in it. You're in it today. All of your phones are in it. And most of your companies already use infrastructure that uses cloud. Decisions on architecture and decisions, business decisions, where do you invest, what do you buy, no longer depend only on what you control, but how you use the cloud infrastructure and the applications that are being offered across the world to you today. And the illusion of control, as you hopefully will see at the end of this presentation, is just an illusion, no matter how safe you think you are. CIOs are not aware of that enough. I, before taking the job here in Hungary, was a CIO in telecommunications companies for a good 10 years, and I can tell you that despite the decisions that we make on a daily basis, you're never informed enough about new technologies. And if you are out there a decision maker, make sure that you personally know enough about the consequences of technologies that you choose inside your company. Cloud will drive the needs of skills and knowledge. In the future, you won't have hardware architects anymore. You will have people that decide how long data should be kept. You will have people that decide what the cloud should look like and how you build up a hybrid if you do choose to have one. You have security experts that will look inside of applications that are being used in the cloud rather than looking at the network security that you might have today. The future will be about services that you can buy quickly, that you can use quickly, that are proven to be safe, and finding a way to bring them into your public infrastructure. And regulation and standards will have to be kept up to date. I know that governments work hard to stay in tune with the technological development. I can tell you that nowhere in the world are they ready for fully supporting the security needs of monitoring behavior in the cloud. Facebook being attacked, who's going to protect us? If one of our chips is exposed that was issued 5 years ago and we're all using it in our infrastructure, who is going to protect you and who's going to hold the companies that provide these services accountable for the lack of security that they provided? This is a very wild slide, and as you'll see, there's a reason for that. Everything is connected. I don't know about your household, but in our household, we have Wi-Fi. We try to protect the Wi-Fi. How many people have changed the password of their Wi-Fi router when they installed it in their house? Everybody else, the chance that you're being hacked right now is about 80%. Okay. So if your password is admin, or if your password is the birthday of your son, or if your password is the generic key that was issued on the Huawei box when you brought your fiber into your house, the guarantee is that someone has already got access to your Wi-Fi modem. It's very high. So I hope that when you come home today or tomorrow, if you're staying overnight, that the people that haven't restarted their password yet and haven't found an anonymous way of delivering a password, please remember, the name of your cat or the birthday of your child is public information. Yes, everybody knows it. If I would like to know the name of your daughter, I will find out in about 45 seconds. So use something that people cannot correlate to your personality so that they won't be able to access your router. Once they have access to your information, to your Wi-Fi, they'll have access to your speakers, and they will know what kind of music you're listening to or whether you're at home at all. They'll have access to your car because everybody here, I saw a lot of nice cars driving in today, have an app on their car where they can find their car, where you can open and close your car, where you can change the temperature of your car before you start using it. All of these things are standard and they're very cool and we're all very happy to have them. At the same time, the moment someone has access to your Wi-Fi, they have access to your phone. And when they have access to your phone, they have access to the apps that are running on the phone. And when they have access to the apps that are running on the phone, they also have access to your cat. Do you see? When I moved to Hungary in January, we decided to install a GPS tracker on my cat because I didn't want to lose him and I was afraid he was going to be uncomfortable walking around in Shashat. So I decided to install a GPS tracker on my cat, which has an app. Okay. So if I was a hacker and I wanted to influence the decision-making of the CEO of ITSH, I would profile him. I would find me on LinkedIn, I would find me on Facebook, see if I have any pictures of children, cats, whatever. I would find the weakest link in that social network, and then I would start scanning. And at the moment where I'm making the most complicated and important decision, even if it's something that I need to do together with the local government, the best thing to do is stress the person out that needs to make the decision. So if you find the weakest link, and you, for instance, pretend that the cat suddenly disappears off the map, what is going to be the reaction of the person watching the phone? It's going to be a shock reaction. If you suddenly get a message from your daughter that says that she's in trouble, and it's not actually the daughter, but someone hacked the Facebook account of your daughter and pretends to be your daughter, all of those things happen today. And the only way for us to protect ourselves against that is by being smarter and being more educated about what we use. We cannot stop the technology anymore that we are using, but we can stop the way people are accessing our information. There's a beautiful use case of robotized vacuum cleaners. Anybody have one? I have one. There you go. So they use cameras and detection mechanisms. So they're very weakly protected, the passwords, okay? Just to tell you, go home and fix the password. That means that people have access to the floor plans of your house the moment they access the vacuum cleaner. And that means that basically you're exposed. you're exposed. People could make pictures of you. People could detect whether you're at home or not. People could see all kinds of information that maybe to you seems pointless, but once they build a bigger picture and they're trying to find a way to influence you or to get access to your information, they will use this information. This is a real use case, by the way. So just telling you, I am not fantasizing about anything here. Everything within the next 5 to 10 years will be connected in one way or another to the internet and will be hosted in the cloud. There's no choice for us. We cannot afford not doing it. The power that the cloud offers us is 1,000,000 times larger than anything we could ever build by ourselves. The edge computing that is offered by using devices and using cloud resources is unthinkably larger than what we could ever build in our own data centers. So yes, if you want to stay competitive and if you want to work with the rest of the world, you will have to go into the cloud. But don't forget to protect yourself and to use common sense when you decide to connect yourself. I want to use one really beautiful, scary story. Our engineers, this is our own development team, had the approval from Deutsche Telekom, which is the owner of ITSH and Magyar Telekom, to do an experiment. So on a hackathon day, 5 programmers went into headquarters in Bonn, headquarters, and installed devices. You see those little pink devices, they look like something that belongs there because it's magenta and it belongs to T-Mobile or T-System, so it looks like they belong there, right? These devices are bought in the shop for about 20 euros per piece. Anybody can buy them. Any person in your neighborhood or in your company can buy them. They are freely available. These are actually Wi-Fi extenders, so they can be connected to the Wi-Fi. And once I know the key, you all have public Wi-Fi here today. Did you roam in? Did you connect? Yes? So in that case, if anybody wanted to, they could start doing things with your phone if you don't protect yourself properly. Within 45 minutes, my engineers, nobody noticed them, my engineers were able to get, this is just the cost of making this device, within 45 minutes, we were able to get 250,000 lines of data about people that walk around in this building. We are not scanning you today, don't worry. But we would, if we could. And there are white hackers or black hackers out there that know that these events are happening today and that know that the majority of decision makers of telecommunications and IT are in the room today. So what stops them from doing the same thing? 1,040 people in 45 minutes were identified by one application running in that mesh network that we created. And guess, we knew exactly where they were, and we had already a big data algorithm running to predict where they were going to be at the end of the day, because you can see your behaviors. You know how often you take a bathroom break. You know when you take a coffee break. You know where you're going. And guys, we all know, we do the same thing every day, even if we don't realize it. Your phone is connected to your car is connected to the cloud. Everyone takes the same route to work every morning. Most people do. Okay? So that means that between 7 and 9, I know where you're going to be. And I know what car you drive, and I know how fast you drive. Okay. There are a lot of informations out there. Public Wi-Fi needs to be protected better. And public Wi-Fi keys need to be better than a predictable name. Devices can be protected in all these different ways. Do use your fingerprint, because it's relatively unique. Use an iris scan if you can. Use a password that is not the birthday of your son. Use something that you can understand, and use applications that you know are going to keep you safe. Use network connectivity that is protected. And if you use public network connectivity, use it in a smart way. Use point-to-point communication when you have something to say that you don't want to share with the rest of the world. And use certification and smart encryption to make sure that even if you cannot ensure point-to-point encryption between 2 devices, that the network that you're using is protected for intrusion. And last but not least, the weakest link in everything is us. Yes. I know that there is a belief that human beings are better than bots, but I can tell you that in most cases we are not. We are not faster than bots. We are not smarter than bots. We are not able to compute 250,000 lines of data in 45 minutes. We are simply not able to do that. And computers can, and AI and robotics can and will. So it's only a question of educating ourselves. How many people that became CEO or minister or mayor of something got a briefing about how they need to use Facebook and phones and security when they started the job? I didn't get one either, by the way. Okay. But while I was preparing for this, I was thinking we have to start educating ourselves. When you are a public figure, when you are a decision maker, you have to understand that people are going to look out for you, and you are out there. You have your digital litter all over the internet, and therefore you're exposed. So being aware of that and being able to control that and being able to clean it as well is of the absolute essence. So the question is not whether you can stop intrusion, because you saw the complexity of the internet. The question is, how do you react when there's an intrusion? How do you protect data that you absolutely cannot share with the rest of the world? How are you more aware, and how can you teach yourself, your family, that includes your mother, who is also on Facebook and is also connected to you and can be potentially the weakest link in your network? And how do you make sure that cloud and IoT will continue to empower the future of your business? Thank you very much.